Good evening, welcome along to round number 5 of Season 5 of the Formula PlayStation League. Another mouth-watering Tuesday night of action brings us 10 kilometres north of the beautiful French Riviera to the town of Le Castellet and the 5.8 kilometre circuit Paul Ricard, where Red Bull's dominant force in Vapor Nuth seeks to take his 4th win of the season and further extend his championship advantage. Here in France, which has held 16 Formula 1 Grand Prix here at Paul Ricard. Of which 10 have been won from pole position. And so this short qualifying session is set to be a fairly important one. Although, having said that, wins from outside the front row sits at just the 2. Sit at 6. It's wins from second, which are at a very low number of 2. It's a bit of a bogey position on the track, so pole position I think will do as far as our drivers are concerned. Thanks so much for joining us. Do get in touch if you have anything you want to say. Just leave it in the chat and I'll try and read out as many messages as I can over the course of the Grand Prix. Joining Camden and the AlphaTauri on a hot lap at the moment. Cam has raced in all 4 of the Grand Prix in Season 5 so far. 1 win to his name, that's his only podium so far. 2 points finishes, 1 DNF as well. So a potential championship contender as this season progresses. But I think he'll be looking for a little bit more consistency and certainly more than that as he loses the back end out of the final corner. And crosses the line to set a 1:30.0, which is beaten immediately by Koba, the league, with a 1:29.0. Casu slots into second, 1:29.6. Here is Vapor Shea in the Williams. 1 podium for him so far. And 3 Grand Prix that he's finished in the points. So, again, he's had quite a satisfying beginning to the Season 5 campaign. As Trixie goes top. 1:28.8. Here comes Vapor Shea up towards the final corner. And it's a smooth exit on the soft tyres and up towards the line for Shea. And what's it going to be for the Williams driver? It is P1 with a 1:28.6. So some very, very competitive lap times indeed coming in already from our drivers. We're still waiting for Nuth to start his flying lap. He's currently on an outlap, the championship leader. And he has enjoyed as he weaves to try and warm up those medium tyres. He's enjoyed a fantastic start to the campaign as Nuth. 57 points clear at the top of the championship. With 3 wins out of the first 4 races. And the other race he did finish in the points as well. It's been an uber competitive, uber consistent season for the Red Bull driver. Looking to bring home what will be Red Bull's first championship since 2013. Closest they've been since is 3rd place, with Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. Few clouds in the air for this short qualifying session. Doesn't look as though there's going to be any rain just yet as Nuth brings that car through the first sector. Purple first sector as well. And on to the second DRS straight. Towards the chicane, at which there is a lot of runoff, and of course you'll notice there's a lot of runoff at just about every part of the circuit. This track was built initially as more of a test circuit than anything else. First race was in 1971. Jackie Stewart took the win that afternoon. As Nuth in towards the final couple of corners. It's a good exit as well. Slight lock a bit of the final turn. Hasn't cost him too much time. Up towards the line now for Nuth. And it is P3 with a 1 minute 28.8 on the mediums though, of course. So don't forget that he is going to be, I would say dark horse, but he's been so dominant. Dark horse isn't really the word, but he'll certainly be one to watch strategy-wise over the course of the Grand Prix. Allsoppy's had a lap invalidated in the Haas, so he'll have to go round and try and set another one. Watching Vapor Josh then in the Renault. And he gets passed down the straight by the Alpha Tauri, which I believe is Cam. So whether he's backed out of this lap, I'm not sure. I think he has backed out of the lap, so clearly not happy with the first sector so far. Here's Buttons back. Nuth's teammate in 11th in the championship. 87 points behind his teammate. As he now crosses the line. And it is P2. 128.7. Not far off what Shea has set as the benchmark out front. Meanwhile, here comes Snookster. 3 races so far for him this season, and 3 finishes in the points. No podiums as of yet, but again, a driver who has shown a lot of consistency, much like one Sergio Perez in the Racing Point. In the 6.5 seasons he's spent now with the Pink Panthers, I guess you could call them. Others would say the Pink Mercedes, but we'll leave that debate. Snookster crosses the line, P7, 129.5 for him. So slots into that top 10, and we've just had a bit of rain, and that's going to affect Trench very adversely indeed in the Mercedes, because he's not set a lap yet. And he's going to have to set one, I would think, in the damp conditions. Same goes for Jack Prentice as well, because he's yet to set a lap. Vapor Josh has only done a 130.3 because he backed out of his lap. Same for Brown in the Haas, or in fact, no, those two might not have backed out. Actually, no, they didn't back out. Those are reasonably close times to the 129s. Here comes Trench then. So he starts his lap, but he's going to have to do it in the rain. DRS is still enabled. He'll be hoping that is the case over the course of his lap. But this is going to essentially mean that the rest of the running and qualifying is a little bit pointless. Unless, of course, the rain stops. But it looks at the minute as though the rain is getting ever heavier. And I put the commentator's curse on Trench, really, by saying it looked like it was going to be dry for the whole of the session. Sorry, Trench. It's raining now. And Jack Prentice still in the pits as well. Bazooka Joe has retired from the session in P11 in the Ferrari. What Trench has just got is a bit of a tow from his teammate TDB, who is currently P7. Cam has also retired from the session on the mediums in the Alpha Tauri. A lot of drivers now realising that the changing weather conditions are not going to be conducive to a quicker lap time. What can Trench do? Well, he won't be last of the runners. 17 drivers with us for this Grand Prix. And Jack Prentice, unfortunately, well, he may try and set a lap, but unfortunately it will be slower as the track continues to get wetter and wetter. Trench rounds the final corner. He's done a good job of keeping the car on the track, in fairness to him, as he crosses the line now for Mercedes. And actually goes P10. Despite the rain, he's got that Mercedes up into the top 10. That's a brilliant lap. Very impressive indeed from Vapor Trench. That's a really, really good effort considering the rain that's just hit us here in Paul Ricard. Vapor Josh is also trying to go quicker, but you can just see how the front end is struggling a little bit more with the rain, as Josh makes his way down towards the chicane of turns 8, 9 and 10, and loses the back end and goes off the track onto the blue strip. And that'll be the end, really, of that particular lap as well for Josh, who is down in P16. Vapor Shay's also decided to retire from the session. And the runoff that Josh has just utilised has been criticised by fans and drivers alike. Carlos Sainz a couple of years ago said it rather ruined the fun of racing back when he was driving for the Renault team. Interesting to hear your thoughts on that as to the runoff here at this circuit, whether it does ruin the racing or not. Well, a few drivers still heading back out, so some of them clearly feeling as though they can find a bit more time, but with the rain that's now coming down, I doubt that's really going to happen. Here is Jack Prentice then, on a lap in the Racing Point. He'll be the last driver to set a lap in the session, but you can just see how tentatively he's having to stroke that car round the circuit. But fair play to him, he's giving it a go. His teammate Snookstad, before the rain hit, was able to put the other Racing Point up into the top 10, into 8th position. At a Paul Ricard circuit that began its construction in 1969. And former Formula 1 drivers who were both French, Jean-Pierre Beltois and Henri Pescarolo, were charged with helping to design the circuit. And they helped to choose the design that you see here. But Jack is steering that Racing Point round now. Jean-Pierre Beltois raced 84 times in Formula 1, and he actually did get one victory to his name. That was in Monaco, and Jack's aborted that lap, so he's going to have to start from last on the grid. Henri Pescarolo raced 56 times, and he also got a podium. And that was at Monaco. So those two clearly had a few things in common. Beltois' talents extended further than Formula 1. He was also an 11-time national champion in France in motorcycle racing. And he joins a bit of a... Oh, that's a spin for the Mercedes, who is now doing some donuts. It is TDB, who has gone out in the intermediates, and he's given us a bit of a donut show. How long can he keep that up for before he gets disqualified? Still going. I guess that was the reason he went out, so he could perform some donuts on the runoff. Nicely done from him. P7 on the mediums. Away he goes. And he's going to spin the Mercedes into the wall afterwards. Well, was he asking for that, maybe? But I'll carry on the point. Piero Taruffi, John Surtees, and Alberto Ascari, also on the list of names of Formula 1 drivers to have dabbled in motorcycle racing. Alain Prost is the driver who has the most wins here at this track with 4. And it's his former McLaren team who are tied with Williams on 3 victories. And Mercedes, which is being driven back into the pits there by TDB, have won 2 the last 2 years with Lewis Hamilton in 2018 and 2019. So, because of the rain, it's ended up being a rather anticlimactic end to qualifying, but it is the Williams of Vaporchet who takes pole position for the French Grand Prix. Buttons back in the Red Bull takes 2nd, Trixie 3rd for McLaren, Vapornuth, the championship leader, the top medium runner in 4th place, Rees is 5th for Ferrari, Cobalt on his debut in Division 1, a brilliant 6th for Renault, TDB 7th, Snookster 8th, Casu 9th, and Vapor Trench rounds out the top 10. Jack Prentice at the bottom, the only driver yet to, or who didn't set a time in qualifying, because he wasn't able to get out there before the rain hit, and the rain ended up hitting pretty hard, which put an end to any more significant running over the course of that short qualifying session. As we now head towards the race, which has been won at Paul Ricard by 11 different drivers. Alain Prost, of course, being one of them. Jackie Stewart is another. Drivers reach speeds generally of about 290 kilometers per hour through the Signay corner, the flat out right just after the triple cornered chicane, or triple chicane, whatever you want to call it. Actually, an interesting point that I think I've brought up before. What would you call a chicane that has 3 corners? Is it a triple chicane or a triple cornered chicane? Let me know in the chat. Anyway, Vaporchet leads us away on the formation lap. And once again, some pretty overcast conditions for the session. So, well, it will be intriguing to see if we do get any rain over the course of the Grand Prix. Around about 154.5 kilometres. There are drivers to negotiate ahead of them. From a usual 309 that the F1 circus would normally have to contend with in a full distance Grand Prix. Just a 50% race for us today, but hopefully just as much action as we would normally come to expect. Ascari, by the way, I mentioned him just a little bit earlier. He raced on bikes in the 1930s, and of course in 1952 and 1953 he would become Formula 1 world champion. And he would also create a record that would stand for a very, very long time in Formula 1 of 9, or I should say 8 consecutive race wins in a single season, which was matched by Sebastian Vettel in 2013 in his incredible 4th and thus far final championship winning season in the Red Bull. As Vaporchet leads the drivers back onto the grid at the end of the formation lap. Two different winners so far in Season 5 in the FPSL is Vaporchet about to make it a third different winner. Buttons back and Trixie behind him. Could do the same as well. The French Grand Prix is underway, and it's a good start off the front row by Vaporshea in the Williams. Buttons back has rather gone winning. Vapor Nuth is challenging with Trixie. Down the inside goes Reese in the Ferrari as well behind. Trixie holds on to third, right behind Buttons back. Reese runs wide in the Ferrari on the exit of turn 2, so it's very done. Vapor Nuth has held on to fourth. Sam up to fifth in the Williams, but Vaporshea crucially holds the lead off the start, looking to become the 11th driver to win this race off of pole position. Trixie running ever so slightly wide as he follows Buttons back in the dirty air. And Sam Sam's up to fourth. Where has Nuth gone? Nuth's been passed by Cobalt. So on Cobalt's debut, and look behind it, Snookster as well trying to pass Nuth. Cobalt's debut is a brilliant one. He's the current championship leader in Division 2. He's been brought up to Division 1 since Ryder has left the league. Ryder, a former champion in the FPSL. And Cobalt so far doing an excellent job, up to P4 in the Renault. But Vaporshea establishing a lead already over Buttons back. Trixie just in third position. And Cam in the Alpha Tauri has spun round. He's down to the last of the runners. He's damaged his front wing as well. He'll need to pit for repairs and probably hope for a safety car from this point. Jack Prentice has done brilliantly off the start. Up to P12 for him in the racing point. But he's coming to the pits, however. That could be for a front wing change. Brown in the Haas has also pitted. And there he is. So I wonder if those two might have collided. And I wonder if Cam might have got involved in an incident between those two. And Vapor Nuth, meanwhile, has gotten back past Cobalt. Yes, he has. So the Renault passed again by the Red Bull. And that's a good move for Nuth. On the medium tyres, looking to now challenge the three ahead of him. Trixie's up next in the McLaren. Three-time winner here in Paul Ricard. Vaporshea hasn't quite escaped DRS range yet of Buttons back behind him. 0.8 of a second separating those two. Meanwhile, there's Vapor Trench. Oh, he's hit the Williams, which is half spun. And Sam, as a result, has gone off the track, and Trench very sportingly lets him go back past. But Reese, as a result, is going to take advantage of that. He's going to go down the inside of the Mercedes and might go down the inside of Sam as well. Does he go for the move? Yes, he does. They're still side by side. Sam leaves the Ferrari space. Reese is still there. It's a really good move from Reese. Opportunistic as they come, as Sam and Trench were battling and making contact in front of him. And he's managed to get ahead of the pair of them. It's a really good move from the Ferrari, who lost out off the start, running wide on the exit of turn 2. As we join TDB, who has lost out to Snookster off the start of this Grand Prix. But still P7 because of certain changes that have happened around it. Nuth now is right on the tail of the McLaren of Trixie, as you can see, looking to put that Red Bull on the podium. For a remarkable fifth podium of the season, on the podium every single race so far. DRS is enabled, and the flap on the rear wing wide open. And look behind as well at Snookster, who's passing Cobalt on the run down towards the chicane, but they're still side by side. Cobalt holds the inside for the second part. Snookster has the inside for the third part and gets ahead of the Renault. But Cobalt's going to have a good slipstream back on the racing point, but it's not going to be enough. He's going to have to concede the position, and he's now got TDB for company. Not too far behind him as well. As we rejoin Nuth, who will surely look to set up a move on the run down towards turn 1. On the McLaren just in front of it. Vaporshea has now extended the lead out front to just over a second from the Red Bull of Buttons back. Slight lock-up, I should say, from Nuth into the final corner. But DRS available now on the McLaren. TDB is he's just gotten past Cobalt into the final corner. Cobalt, though, is going to try and come back at him towards turn 1. He's going to have to go the long way round, and he decides against it. Just didn't have the overspeed to try and come back at TDB. He might do here, though. He's got a good run out of turn 2, down towards 3, but no, not close enough to the Mercedes without hitting the racing point in front of it. Here's Nuth again. Again, just hasn't quite been able to get past, and TDB's just lost a few positions. He ended up behind his teammate Trench. He's now behind Reese and Cobalt as well, so I think TDB's made a pretty big mistake somewhere. Now here comes Nuth down the inside of Trixky, and into the podium places goes the Red Bull. Right behind his teammate, Buttons back. He's making some brilliant inroads now in this Grand Prix. As we join Reese, who's just gotten past Trench, and there they are. Trench right behind the Ferrari, TDB behind him. And now Cobalt, who's also just lost out on quite a few positions, is battling with his teammate Vapor Josh, with Sam and the Williams right behind them. Oh, is that a move down the inside from Sam? Oh, yes it is, and it's gone horribly wrong. He's spun round. It was a move that was never really going to work for him. And maybe part of that is a bit of frustration earlier on, as meanwhile Cobalt and Josh going side by side, and Josh getting ahead of Cobalt. And we've got Buttons back and Nuth going side by side. And Nuth gets up into second place on the medium compound tyres. A few drivers now into the pits as well, which has promoted Vapor Trench up to 4th place in this Grand Prix. What a brilliant start to the race, though, for Nuth on the mediums. He's gotten ahead of his teammate Buttons back, who's on the softs. And now he can set after the race-leading Williams of Vapor Shea, who is just under 2 seconds in front. As we join the drivers who have just come into the pits, Trixky, who was near the podium places, has just exited. Reese as well. Snookster. And Jack Prentice and Brown, who have already both pitted. Yeah, they're, unfortunately for them, behind all of this lot. Meanwhile, Vapor Trench still... he's just been passed, in fact, just been passed by his teammate TDB. So TDB, who had fallen back down the order because of, I believe, a mistake, has now gotten back past his Mercedes teammate. He won't have been happy about the mistake that put him behind him in the first place. Vapor Josh now building an advantage over his teammate Cobalt, and actually closing in pretty heavily now. Oh no, he's not, because he's spun in the Renault. He's got on the curb, he's spun into the wall, he's back behind his teammate. I've put the commentator's curse on it. He was very quick indeed, catching up to the Mercedes. And Buttons back and Vapor Shea have both come into the pits. That has given Nuth the lead of the Grand Prix. And there is Shea into the pits. So what tyres does he go on to in the Williams? It's a set of the yellow-walled medium compound tyre, which will probably necessitate, I'd say, at least one more stop between now and the end of the race. TDB still going in the Mercedes. So Vapor Nuth currently leading TDB. Of course, those two both on the medium. So we'll see how long they can take those sets of tyres, respectively. As Vapor Josh also pits for Renault, as he gets into the exit and actually falls now down to the last of the runners because he had to change his front wing, which has put Brown in the Haas in front of him. Josh, unfortunately, has had one DNF from a single race that he's had so far in FPSL. As we rejoin Sam, spun earlier in trying to go down the inside, and is now just behind Bazooka Joe, who got past him as a result. Allsoppy in the Haas is just behind them, and meanwhile here comes Vapor Shea getting past the AlphaTauri of Cam. And that's an important move for him. Does not want to be stuck in the dirty air of another car whilst he's trying to close the gap on Nuth before his pit stop. It'll be very, very intriguing indeed to see how that works out strategy-wise for Nuth. Whether starting on the mediums is going to work, and just how far he can take those mediums into the race and how quick. Oh, there's a spin! And there's a spin for Buttons back in the second Red Bull. Quite a few spinners in the early going of this French Grand Prix, as Cobalt comes into the pits as well. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what pace Vapor Shea has now on his set of medium tyres. There is the Williams. Such a frustrating area for Buttons back, although he is now right back side by side with Snookster on the run down towards turn 1, gets past the racing point and back up into the points paying positions. Vapor Trench is just behind them. Reese is following the McLaren of Trixie pretty closely as they come towards the DRS straight. Vapor Josh has just gotten past Brown for P16. And Pazoka Joe, meanwhile, right behind Sam. And Sam's managed to pass him. So Sam's got that position back again from the Ferrari. Here comes Reese, not quite close enough just yet to the McLaren in front of him. Ferrari, who have won here at Paul Ricard in the past. They are one of 8 different constructors to win the Grand Prix here at this Paul Ricard circuit. Reese really running it out wide and trying to get as good an exit as he possibly can. He's got a great chance now, surely, to get past the McLaren if he can keep it all together down the home straight. Got his front wing right underneath the gearbox of that McLaren. And it can't be too long before he gets ahead. He's already nearly pushing him round the final corner. Gets a good exit as well. Opens up the flap on the rear wing. He has DRS. Trixie doesn't. Trixie, I think, tried to go defensive, but Reese goes to the inside anyway as Buttons back says the fastest lap. And it's a pretty simple move in the end for Reese into turn 1 to get ahead. And Snookster is being passed by Trench, who goes all the way off the track. Very nearly hits the racing point on the way back on. Snookster dives down the inside and gets back ahead of the Mercedes. Really good battle going on between those two, and it looks set to carry on as well down the second DRS straight. Vapor Shays managed to get ahead of Old Suppy on his way back up the order. Nuth and TDB still yet to pit. And now here comes Trench. And he's going to try and go the long way round. Snookster goes defensive. He'll hold the inside in the braking zone. But Trench has the overspeed and is able to get back ahead of the racing point. Claims the apex. And some really, really quality racing between these two. And meanwhile, Buttons back is side by side with Trixie. And he's ahead of Trixie. Gets ahead of the McLaren as he looks to recover back through the field after his spin a couple of laps ago, which he'll be kicking himself about, but he's now behind the Ferrari of Reese. Has to put it behind him as he continues his pursuit back up to the points. Up to P9 now as he chases after Reese, and you can see how much more speed he's taking into the final couple of corners with the softer tyres that he's got on the car. Hasn't got the best exit out of the final corner. It won't quite give Trixie the chance to get back in front. He's just a little too far behind. Looks as though it is brightening up a little bit over the circuit. The threat of rain looks to be diminishing, which will come as a bit of a relief to some drivers. Others, not so much. Kasu in the second McLaren running down in last place. I'm sure he would want some rain or perhaps a safety car. Cam, meanwhile, chasing after his teammate Allsoppy. Both of them on the same aged medium tyres that they started the race on, so no need to pit for either of those two just yet. Allsoppy with 3 races, just the 1 finish in the top 10 for him so far. Cam, one of the 2 winners so far in the Formula PlayStation League, with, of course, the Red Bull senior driver Nuth. So both the Red Bull teams taking victory so far. Buttons back, meanwhile, is pursuing Reese ever closer. Dealing with the dirty air pretty well. Just seemed to get a bit of understeer through the final couple of corners of the last lap. What can he do here? Into the final corner. Runs a little bit wide, and that's going to cost him again in terms of getting past his teammate. And Cam has gotten past Allsoppy on the run down towards turn 1. Looks like a very routine move from him. And a bit of synchronised swimming there between the 2 AlphaTauris. Meanwhile, Vapor Shay not far behind Bazooka Joe. Joe actually starting on the hard compound tyres, so he's going to be taking those a very long way into the Grand Prix. Worryingly for Shea. He's quite away, isn't he? Behind the leader. 23 seconds away from Nuth. Side by side now with Bazooka Joe, with DRS down the inside, gets the move done into the chicane. And next is his teammate Sam, and so he shouldn't have too much trouble getting past him. Meanwhile, Reese is, in fact, Reese has just gotten ahead of Allsoppy. And now here comes Buttons back on the AlphaTauri. Bit of a late move to the inside, but gets the job done. Trixky's going to be next to try and get ahead of the AlphaTauri. And Buttons back will now once again try and continue his pursuit of the Ferrari. Vapor Josh, meanwhile, going side by side with Jack Prentice, the runner in the Racing Point, who have been involved in a bit of a dispute in Formula 1 over the last few weeks, going side by side, but no drama between those two. Josh gets ahead of Jack. And Jack has been forced back down to 15th position as a result. Reese, meanwhile, right behind the Williams, the AlphaTauri of Cam. Oh, Cam runs a bit wide on the exit of turn 2. Is Reese going to have the opportunity down towards 3? No, not quite. Doesn't quite have the overspeed as 3-4 they go. And look at that, he's very nearly pushing that AlphaTauri through turn 5. In towards 6 and 7, and now he's going to have a good chance with DRS, but look at Buttons back as well. Buttons back he's got quite a good slipstream, and it could be 3 wide on the run down towards the chicane. Reese trying to get past the AlphaTauri. Buttons back down the inside of the Ferrari, doesn't quite have the overspeed, and Trixky gets ahead of Allsoppy to move up into P9 now in this French Grand Prix. As we rejoin Buttons back. And Reese just in front of him. Getting very close indeed to Cam. He will be really starting to struggle pace-wise on those tyres, notwithstanding the fact that they are, of course, pretty old. And into the pits comes Buttons back. So he's had enough of being stuck behind the Ferrari of Reese, and he's decided to try and clear the traffic and come into the pits. TDB is also in, as is Sam in the Williams, so a few of the medium runners off the start opting to come into the pits. Shea is now back up to second, and it's around about the gap that you would expect for a pit stop, so it's going to be very close between those two. Nuth, however, is on the 1 stop. Shea is undoubtedly on the 2 stop. Here comes Trixky now, who is trying to get past Reese, who is still having a bit of trouble getting past Cam. And once again, this could get interesting between these three, as Reese once again follows the AlphaTauri down towards the chicane, and isn't quite close enough for the move just yet on the car in front. And Trixky, as a result of that DRS train, also being held up and isn't able to get in front. Cobalt, meanwhile, right behind the Racing Point of Snookster. Cobalt running in the points, with TDB just behind him in the Mercedes. Further down the order, Vapor Josh is pitted for the hard, so he's back down to P16. Brown is quite a way ahead of him. Brown himself is 2 seconds behind Buttons back, although that gap is going to open out because, of course, Buttons back is on fresh tyres at this point. Here comes Reese again, and has he got the momentum this time out of the final corner? Certainly looks like it. He's got DRS and slipstream, but Cam has got some really good straight line speed, hasn't he, down the home straight? And yeah, Reese just isn't able, despite the use of DRS, to get close enough to him. And Nuth has come into the pits and rejoined in front of Shea. So Nuth's pace, after Shea had pitted on the medium tyres, was so brilliant that he's been able to pit, having been in clear air, and rejoin in front of the Williams. So that's gone wrong for Shea. who has another pit stop to make, so really he needs a safety car at this point to displace the Red Bull out front. Here comes Reese again, not quite close enough again. Meanwhile, Trench has been going side by side with Orsopi, gets ahead of Orsopi, and up now into P7. Orsopi still on the hard tyres that he started the race on, doesn't need to pit just yet. And that strategy of going late into the race will allow him to be on very fresh tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix. Here comes TDB getting past Cobalt. And he does get in front now of the Renault. Through Signe. And that's how TDB back up into the points. Cobalt back down to P11. There's Reese again. And I think he's probably just praying for an error now off cam. And it's another decent run from the Ferrari off the final corner, but he just doesn't seem close enough. Although here he comes, he's a bit closer this time. No, still not close enough for the move. This is allowing Vapor Trench to catch up to Trixky, who is stuck behind Reese because Reese can't get past Cam. So it is all a bit of a trade at the moment. Trixky taking a bit more momentum through the chicane than Reese, and look how quickly Trench has been able to catch up to this lot as a result of all this battling. These guys now all bring it through towards the second DRS straight. Here comes Reese again, looking for the move on the AlphaTauri. This time he's got himself side by side. This time he's in front. Is he? No, he's not. Cam defends the inside brilliantly, and Reese once again has to stay behind him, although he's got some pretty good momentum now. And meanwhile behind them, Trixky's being passed by Vapor Trench. And two bits of side-by-side action going on. Cam once again stays ahead, and Trench goes down the inside of Trixky and gets the move done on the McLaren. Look how close Reese is still to Cam. Still can't traverse the obstacle that is the AlphaTauri at the moment. As we join the Ferrari, literally pushing that AlphaTauri around the track. But still, as of yet, unable to get himself in front, and bit of contact as he gets a bit impatient, and once again a bit of contact as Cam runs a little bit wide. Oh, very wide. In the background goes Snookster, who's being passed by TDB, and TDB gets ahead of him. I think there was a bit of a late move into the final corner. Cobalt is now back up into the points. Jack Prentice has come into the pits. Here comes Reese again, looking for the move on Cam. And at what point does he become frustrated and just send a late move down the inside of the AlphaTauri? Oh, Trench right behind him, and now the Ferrari is nearly side by side with the AlphaTauri. And has he got the momentum this time? Oh, and he looks as though he's crashed out of the Grand Prix. And yes, he has. The Ferrari's out. The Ferrari's crashed into the wall. The virtual safety car has been deployed, and Reese's frustration has led him to smash that red car into the race-ending barriers. And he's not going to be getting past Cam because he's too busy fishing that car out of the wall. And you could just see the body language of the car. He was growing so impatient behind that car. What this might allow Vapor Shea to do out front is come in for a free pit stop. The virtual safety car won't be with us for that much longer. And he has come into the pits, has the Williams. Virtual safety car will most likely be over by the time he comes back out of the pits. And indeed it is over by the time he even gets into the pit lane. But he might lose a little bit less time than what he ordinarily would have done. Here comes Cobalt then, and meanwhile a bit of side-by-side action in front as Allsuppy comes into the pits. And what have we got? Cam out front is, yeah, he's been passed by the Mercedes of Trench. So Trench able to do what Reese was unable to do for so many laps and get ahead of the AlphaTauri. Trixky now looking to take what at the moment is that final podium position because of Shea's pit stop. And actually, I think that two-stop strategy has really worked against Shea, hasn't it? Because the Williams now is down in 9th place. Although, having said that, a lot of these guys will also have to come into the pits. But in terms of winning this Grand Prix, looks as though that's it for him. And meanwhile, Cam being attacked by Trixky, TDB getting involved behind in the Mercedes. Snookster will be joining this battle pretty shortly. Cam has to go defensive. Meanwhile, Trixky side by side with him. Here comes the Mercedes of TDB getting ever closer. And once again, the straight line speed that Cam has got in that car paying dividends, because Trixky, despite being side by side there, just unable to get ahead of him. Trixky, though, puts his nose down the inside, just about avoids contact. Cam left him enough room down the inside so that they could both come out of that scenario unscathed. Look at TDB all over the back of the McLaren, and Trixky comes into the pits, as does Snookster in the Racing Point. Now here comes TDB, and he's got the run now on the AlphaTauri of Cam down towards turn 1. The Mercedes has much better straight line speed than the Ferrari did, and he tries to go round the outside at turn 1 and pulls it off brilliantly on the hard compound tyres. Brilliant move, although Cam's coming back at him side by side again, and Trench will have to defend the inside. Can't do so. Cam gets back ahead. It's some brilliant racing here for what is at the moment second place between these two, who, well, Cam will have to stop again. I don't believe TDB will have to. Cam is still going on the same set of mediums that he started the race on, so he might be lightning quick towards the end of the race. Meanwhile, look at the momentum that Cobalt's got out of turn 7 down towards the chicane, and it could be 3 wide, as now TDB goes round the outside of the AlphaTauri, and this time gets the move done on Cam. And on the exit, as a result, Cobalt's going to have a good run. Once again, that straight line speed setup of the car in front might just cost him. He's still going to try and make the move round the outside. Oh, there's contact, and they're both in the wall. Oh, they both span. They both make contact with each other. Cobalt and Cam trying to go side by side, end up making wheel-to-wheel contact, and end up both spearing into the wall. Cam is out of the race as a result. Cobalt has, I believe, got damage. Yes, no, he hasn't. He hasn't got damage. How on earth has he absolutely smashed into the wall and not got damage from that? That is amazing. So he's going to be able to carry on. Virtual safety car is deployed. Interesting to hear your thoughts on that. Whose fault was that, if anyone's fault? It was a weird accident. Sam has taken this opportunity with the virtual safety car to come into the pits. Virtual safety cars come back in again, but it's a set of medium tyres which will take Sam to the end of the Grand Prix. Meanwhile, here's Trench just behind Pazoka Joe. There they are, running wide out of turn 2, just trying to get as good a run as possible on the way down towards 3. And if he can set himself up nicely through these next few corners, he'll have the run on the Ferrari. I think what a lot of the drivers in the field will be hoping for right now is a full safety car rather than a virtual safety car. The one driver in the grid who will not want that is Luth out front. And here comes Trench down the inside of Bazooka Joe and gets the move done on the Ferrari. And that is Trench now up into 6th place in this French Grand Prix. Allsuppy, meanwhile, is half a second behind Snookster in the Racing Point. There they are. Mystic31 says that Cobalt was laggy, and so the crash was his fault. So that's the view of Mystic. Encourage anyone else watching to get involved and give us your thoughts on that incident. Thank you to Mystic for getting involved there. Thank you to Mies as well for watching. As we join Allsuppy again with DRS on Snookster. Sam on those fresh medium tyres is also catching these two. It's not much fresher though, to be fair, than Allsuppy and Snookster in front. 2 lap old tyres for both of those two, pitted in unison. Allsuppy actually beginning to fall back from Snookster. Sam has just gotten himself within DRS range of that AlphaTauri in front of him. Shea, meanwhile, is just behind Cobalt, who I really am unsure how he managed to escape any front wing damage, or any damage at all, from that crash earlier on. As here comes Shea, not quite close enough just yet to Cobalt. Train spotting fan says Cobalt should have backed out of it instead of running around the outside. Thanks very much to train spotting fan for your comment. Sam looking to climb up into the points paying positions now, with a potential move here on All Stoppy, taking a sweeping line into the final sector, which is very different to the rest of the circuit. Sectors 1 and 2 really tends to be just all about straight line speed, and tends to be a little bit different with the final sector. Cobalt into the pits for Renault meanwhile, and the newbie in Division 1 has gone onto a set of the soft compound tyre, as Sam goes side by side with Orsopi and gets back up into 9th place now. Both of these two elevated up to the points because of Cobalt's pit stop, which has only put him in P11 and 4 seconds behind Orsopi. So Cobalt, barring any further incident in this Grand Prix, will probably be looking pretty closely at still getting a point scoring finish. Although I maintain it's rather fortuitous to have a crash like that and not concede any damage. Right, Vapor Shea has left the session. He's disconnected in the Williams, which would be awful for him. The pole sitter, yeah, it looks as though he's in trouble. So hopefully for him, he reconnects pretty soon, because he's got Buttons back in the second Red Bull, hunting him down now, looking for a podium. And it would, interestingly, be the first time this season that both Red Bulls will have finished on the podium. Buttons back yet to score a podium in the Formula PlayStation League in Season 5. But Vapor Shea has rejoined the session, so well, we'll see pace-wise just how much Buttons back closes on Vapor Shea. I really did just struggle to say Buttons back. Apologies. Here comes Sam. He's got the run now on Snookster towards turn 1. Is he close enough? Doesn't look like it. No, he's not. Has to settle behind the Racing Point for the time being. Oh, very wide goes the Racing Point of Snookster, and gets a 3-second time penalty. What he was trying to do there, he was trying to stay off the track for as long as possible, so the game wouldn't register the fact that he had gone off, if that makes any sense. But he wasn't able to do that, and he does concede a 3-second time penalty. Sam, though, still right behind him. Cobalt is very nearly within DRS range of Orsopi behind them. Not quite, though. And Sam has a look down the inside. No, not quite. And he gets a 3-second time penalty actually for cutting the chicane. I think he actually had to cut the corner to avoid hitting the Racing Point. So they're both on 3-second time penalties now. As meanwhile, here comes Cobalt, getting ever closer to the AlphaTauri. Sam in the Williams looking for only his third points finish in the FPSL this season. He's retired from 1 Grand Prix so far. 2 points finishes and then 1 finish outside of the points. Right, meanwhile, here comes Sam in the Williams. Here comes Cobalt in the Renault. Which battle to watch, I wonder? Well, Sam isn't able to get ahead just yet. Cobalt is able to get ahead of Orsopi and climb back up into the points in the Renault. Orsopi forced back down to 11th place. And Sam behind them, in front of them. Still looking for a way past the the Racing Point. Oh, has to scoop up the back end on the exit. Brown has a penalty. He's all the way down in 14th place at the moment in the Haas. Sam again doesn't look close enough, does he? down this straight. What this will do is allow Cobalt to catch up, and we could have a three-way fight potentially for 8th place in this French Grand Prix, which would be pretty exciting, wouldn't it? That'd be good to see. Snookster just seems to have enough straight line speed to pull away from the Williams, who is catching up in the final sector. So it's really on the run between the final corner and turn 1 down the home straight where he's going to have his best opportunity. Buttons back is 2.5 behind Vapor Shea, but he's also got to look behind him because Vapor Trench in the Mercedes is catching up to him. Trench, who has 1 podium to his name and 3 points finishes out of the 4 races. So, again, a really consistent performer so far in Season 5 in the FPSL. Here comes Sam again. Once again, just didn't seem to be able to get the purchase on the medium tyres on the exit of the final corner to be close enough to the racing point. Here is Vapor Trench in the Mercedes, getting ever closer to the Red Bull of Buttons back, who looks at the moment as though he's set to extend his spell of finishes outside of the podium. 2 points finishes and 1 DNF in the 3 races that he's joined us for in Season 5. Here comes Sam again. Less than half a second behind the racing point. Really close now to Snookster. Is this the move? Is this 8th place for Sam down the inside? And he's got him. Snookster has to go off the track. Surely has to give that position up. Yes, he does. Very sportingly indeed. Lets the Williams go. And that's now 8th place for Sam. That move was coming. Meanwhile, in front, Trixky is catching up to Bazooka Joe for 6th place. Can he gain a couple of extra points in that McLaren? Vapor Nuth still leads the Grand Prix by nearly half a minute from TDB in the lead Mercedes. It's really been a fantastic Grand Prix from him. Buttons back. Well, the gap up to Vapor Shea is staying pretty consistent at about 2.5 seconds. Trench still less than a second behind the Red Bull. Snookster hasn't really left Sam alone. Still half a second behind him. Could potentially have an opportunity down the upcoming DRS straight, actually, if he can keep it together. Look at Cobalt as well, just behind these two in P10. Looking to snap up on any opportunity, of course. On the soft tyres as well is the Renault. And here comes Vapor Trench. No, not quite close enough yet to Buttons back, but he's certainly getting there, isn't he? Making the inroads that he needs to. Here comes Snookster trying to come back at Sam, and not quite able to get ahead of him just yet. Cobalt lurking behind them, waiting for the chance to get himself in front. And actually, those two going side by side again. Sam on the inside. We've seen this go wrong before. Cobalt almost looking at a replay of what happened to him earlier. Oh, very nearly contact again between those two. But, well, they managed to avoid race-ending contact. Cobalt, I think, might have been cynically hoping for a bit of a collision. There was almost a bit of deja vu for the Renault, wasn't it, looking ahead at those two. Here comes Trench then. Has he got the exit out of the final corner? He's in the slipstream of the Red Bull in front of him. Buttons back is going to be vulnerable here to losing 4th position. Here comes Vapor Trench into turn 1. No, not quite close enough just yet to get ahead of him. Here comes Trixky. No, not quite able to get ahead of Bazooka Joe. Sam is still being attacked by Snookster, and the longer this goes on, the longer Cobalt's going to be stuck in the dirty air, although Cobalt has got the run here, hasn't he? And no, he's not quite able to get ahead of the racing point. Actually runs a little bit wide through turn 3. That'll compromise his run through both 4 and 5. Trixky now with a really good run through turn 7. Snookster's gone very wide. Cobalt's going to have the chance on him. Here comes Trixky though, trying to pass the Ferrari, and meanwhile Buttons back has been passed by Vapor Trench on the run in towards the chicane. Bazooka Joe once again manages to stay in front of the McLaren. Cobalt going side by side nearly with Snookster, not quite able to get ahead of him, but he's going to have a good run now off the chicane in the slipstream of the racing point. And these two now are going to run. Are they going to run side by side? No. No, they're not. I'm not sure Cobalt will really want to be honest, after the earlier incident. Trixie again. Following that Ferrari in towards the final couple of corners. Can he set himself up through the final turn for a move? Vapor Trench has now managed to break DRS to Buttons back behind him. 3 seconds up to Vapor Shea in the Williams, which with a couple of laps left isn't really going to be possible for him. Trixie doesn't look as though he's going to be close enough again to the Ferrari. Here comes Snookster. No, Cobalt hasn't got the run on him either. Snookster actually closer to Sam in front than Cobalt is behind them. Sam's had a bit of a compromised run through turns 1 and 2. Snookster down towards 3. Oh, thought about the move down the inside, and they both pick up penalties for cutting across turn 3. That was like synchronised swimming between those two, as they both made exactly the same mistake at exactly the same time and paid the penalty for it. Meanwhile, Vapor Josh is into the pits. That all but assures that he won't be scoring any points in this evening's race, and Trixie, I think, is going to be feeling a little bit desperate meanwhile as he tries to pass the Ferrari of Bazooka Joe, but Joe's got a pretty poor run through the chicane. Is Trixie going to have the slipstream? Is he going to have the overspeed down towards the sweeping right-hander? No, he's not quite going to be close enough into Signe. Meanwhile, behind, Sam still ahead of Snookster, right behind him into these two right-handers, but still nothing's giving just yet between this lot. Paul Ricard criticised at times for the lack of overtaking. As, there is Buttons back. He's once again going to have to watch his teammate take the top step of the podium, and now here comes Trixie, and he's got a really good run this time. It's now or never surely for the McLaren to get down the inside into turn 1, and he's pulled it off, has he? Well, they're still side by side. Bazooka Joe has really held it nicely down the inside of turn 2, and Trixie's move is to no avail. The Ferrari manages ahead. He's clawing to keep that Ferrari in front of the McLaren. Meanwhile, Sam still just in front of Snookster. Allsoppy's got another penalty in the Haas, as now here comes Sam again. Trixie again, I should say, on the run down towards the chicane, and surely he's going to go for the move down the inside. Yes, he is, as Vapor Nuth wins the French Grand Prix. Absolutely world-class drive from him today. Nobody was stopping him. Started on the mediums, went on to the hards. It was a strategical masterclass from the World Championship leader, who beautifully extends his championship lead with a magnificent victory. TDB will come home for second place, but it's all about the podium at the moment, because Vapor Shea is just in front of TDB, but it looks as though the Williams, who started on pole, lost out due to the strategy call from Vapor, is going to come home in third place in front of Vapor Trench. There's Buttons back. Meanwhile, Trixie has gotten in front of the Ferrari of Bazooka Joe on the very last lap of the race. Sam holds on for 8th. Snookster 9th, but Cobalt gets ahead of both of them because they both had penalties. So Cobalt takes 8th on his Division 1 debut. Brilliant result for him. Allsoppy will finish in 11th. Jack Prentice, who started the race last of the runners, having been unable to set a lap in qualifying because of the wet conditions, is going to come home to take a 12th place finish. Brown will be in 13th behind him in the Haas. But it's that man there, Vapor Nuth, who has taken an excellent victory in round number 5 of season 5 of the FPSL. And a remarkable 4th win of the season, a 5th podium. Wasn't his 4th pole position, but somehow I very much doubt that the Red Bull driver will care all that much about that. What a drive from Nuth. What a result for Red Bull. It's the Milton Keynes base team on top once more. Mercedes and Williams both on the podium after a thrilling French Grand Prix. Nuth wins then in the Red Bull. TDB second. Vaporshade takes third. Trench in fourth for Mercedes. Trixie in fifth for McLaren. Bazooka Joe finishes sixth for Ferrari. Buttons back in seventh in the second Red Bull because of penalties, pushing him back down from fourth. Cobalt in eighth in the Renault. Good result for him in his Division 1 debut. Sam in ninth in the Williams. Snookster P10. All Suppy in 11th in the AlphaTauri. Jack Prentice 12th in the Racing Point. Brown in 13th for Haas. Vapor Josh 14th in the Renault. Kasu finished 15th in the McLaren, although I think it was a ghost car actually running for him in the end. And 2-0 finishes Cam, who collided with Cobalt earlier on in the Grand Prix, and Reese, who crashed whilst actually chasing after Cam earlier on in the Ferrari. It was a big, big championship lead coming into round number 5 here in France. It's an even bigger one as we head towards round 6. For now,